with college students gives you an opportunity, at least the campuses that I've worked at, to have a diverse student population. And so throughout the day, we could be talking with people from the city in which you're currently residing, working in, to people from a major city across the country. We can be dealing with people from other countries. We can be working with students who have both visible and invisible disabilities. And you have to be able to engage students in a conversation about who they are, what their goals are, and helping them to achieve them, while keeping in mind all of the different things that are environmental that can be affecting them. So for example, I recently had a conversation with a student who is from France who wants to be able to stay to work in the United States when they finish their education, and how easy will that be for them to be able to stay. So that's one conversation that you have. Then the next conversation might be a student who is deaf trying to figure out what employers would consider hiring them. And so all of those students are employable. They all have really good skill sets, but it's teaching the student, how do you sell what you have, the skills that you have, to the employers that would be most interested in hiring you. And that's one of the challenges of working with college students, and it's one of the coolest parts of it. Every day is different, and you learn so many things about yourself and about people that just makes the job fun.
Well, I'm a licensed therapist that works in a residential high school, and I also write letters for kids for letters of recommendation for college. So my job kind of has 3 layers to it, and it's not a typical therapist job, but I'm also not a school counselor. But my role between those 3 intersects a lot. So my role consistently changes on a daily basis, and there are some meetings I have with kids that are they're therapy sessions. I have other meetings with some kids that are I just want to hang out in your office and talk about the weather for 30 minutes. That's cool. And I have other kids that are panicking about what their future looks like. So in that sense, my role turns from therapist to maybe mentor or advisor or college letter writer or college counselor in a sense. So being aware of that has been challenging at some times, but also it allows me the freedom to do different things with different students depending on what they need, which has been really great and super flexible, which is always a good thing.
So as a college and career readiness coach, my job really is to serve as an extension of the guidance office and also the career and technical education department. So what I see is that I help students with their transition to life after high school. And it's really neat because I get to work with students in such a unique way. We're trying to build things in a very strategic way at our high school, and so we have started looking at sort of an essential questions model. So when we think about college and career readiness, we want students to walk away knowing who they are, what their options are, what their action plan is, and what legacy they want to leave behind. And so we focus those things through each grade level. And so with the freshmen, their focus is who am I? So we do a lot with personality profiles with them. We try to help them identify their strengths and weaknesses in a way that they can comfortably articulate those things. We also help them to sort of reflect on their past experiences as far as academics go or personal and social development goes. And then we really help them to think about the future and how they want to commit to being the best version of themselves that they can be. And we use a lot of community partners as we do that. Sophomore year, we really focus on what are their options. And so we talk about college, we talk about military, we talk about the workforce, and we talk about how there are different pros and cons for each student in all of those categories. We want them to look at it through fresh eyes. We want to help them bust perceptions and understand that each one of those avenues can help them obtain a high quality of life. Junior year, then, we focus on what's their action plan going to be. And so by sophomore year, they will have all taken the ASVAB Career Exploration Program, which is wonderful for tying together their strengths and their abilities. And they'll know in a more clear way which path they want to take. So junior year is about the plan. So that's the year that they talk to people who have done what they're looking at doing, and they have some more in-depth exploration opportunities. And then, senior year, they're talking about how do we tie all of this knowledge together in a way that helps them segue into the real world. And so they're actually living out their action plan that senior year, and then they're thinking about the populations they want to serve and how they're going to give back.
Population in whom we serve with the Intercultural Student Engagement Center, students of color enrolled at Western Kentucky University. And for the TRIO programs, they are first generation, low-income students of any age.
When you're working with any diverse population, when it comes to college and career readiness, what you really have to be a good student of is just being a good student about humans. You have to be willing to watch the television show in Spanish, even though you don't understand the words, but you're trying to learn a little bit of the language. And you have to be interested in watching a television show about how they put together a train so that you can then help a student who might be interested in some kind of engineering. You want to be a student of life so that you can be familiar with what are some of the issues that are happening in different parts of the world, because not all of your students come from the background that you came from. And if you can be a good student of the world around you, it makes you a much, much better career coach. It makes you a better person working in college and career readiness. It makes you a better person who can encourage somebody who wants to try something really crazy as far as their view of a career, because you're not stunned by anything. You know, that openness, the open heart that says, okay, what's your goal, and let's figure out how to get you there, regardless of where you come from in the world or regardless of what your background is. That your belief in somebody else's chance for success is probably one of the best gifts you can give the person that you're working with.
I think counselors and other populations can serve diversity populations just by getting to know diverse populations and admitting that they don't know how to serve diverse populations. I think when we think about the 12 step, you know, the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. And I think in many instances that it's difficult for people to work with diversity or a diverse population is because, one, they shy away from that population because they feel like this is beyond the scope of what I can do, and so that broadens the disconnect. But I think the more exposure, I would encourage people to put themselves in uncomfortable positions, and then again, above all, if you can't help, you know, do no harm. But sometimes we don't even give ourselves a chance, and just have an opportunity to begin to talk about how you really feel, claim your own biases, and then move forward from that. I think sometimes we keep things to ourselves, and they're not able to be dispelled. And so that's I guess if I was going to encourage or say anything, is to get outside your comfort zone. And almost I think sometimes even in our classes we do students a disservice because we only provide them with textbooks information. And it's almost like, I'll digress a little bit, it's almost like when I had my first child, I read everything and I watched all the films and did Lamaze, but when I went into labor, it was nothing like I read. You know, so really experience is the best teacher, exposure, going through some things. And I think when I think about diverse populations and working with populations of diversity, it's key that you get down in the dirt and you really ask the hard questions and you put yourself in uncomfortable positions and you advocate for those who are different than you.
So I think just like staying with the times and being current and educating yourself on things that you may not know. So I have had to like actually tell myself, you need to place yourself in this kid's shoes. You need to place yourself in this student's shoes to see, like, why can't they make this decision? Why is it so difficult for them? Or why are they so upset about this? Or why are they beating themselves up over something that, like a choice or something that's stressing them out or whatever it may be? And I've had to do that especially with our minority students. We have a pretty good population of Middle Eastern, Indian students, and the cultural pressures from their family look a lot different than any pressure that I face as a Caucasian woman. So a lot of times the family pressure outweighs any pressure that the student could ever put on themselves, just because they're expected to succeed. They are expected to get all A's, whether I agree with that or any of my other coworkers agree with that or not. That's a reality for those students the majority of the time, is just that pressure to succeed and do well in school and get those A's and those, 36s on your ACT and do extremely well and get into elite schools and, get those merit-based scholarships and all of these things that I look at as very tangible. But for them, that's not the reality. And I work with this year, I have a junior who his family is Kenyan. And I have learned so much from him just about his culture and his family's culture and the expectations that they have for him. And he has a younger brother, and how, he puts that pressure on himself to be a role model for him. So I think just physically putting yourself, emotionally, mentally, whatever it may be, putting yourself in their shoes to better understand, like, why are they the way that they are, or what pressure are they under that I never had when I was their age, that I can't know what they're feeling, but I can try. And I think that's all that we can do as professionals and therapists and counselors or school officials or whatever. Like, all we can do is just try and make an effort to learn where someone else is coming from. And that's not just with our students or our clients or whatever, it's just with the people around you too. And we don't have a super diverse staff, but we're relatively diverse, and there have been times that I've had to put myself in their shoes as well to understand why they made a choice that they did with a certain student or didn't make a choice or whatever it was. So making that effort goes so far instead of just trying to fake it. Like, even if you mess up, or even if you say the wrong thing or assume the wrong thing or whatever, at least you're trying.
One of the biggest challenges that I see with college students when they're trying to set and achieve their career goals is the family units that surround them. A lot of students come from families that are very supportive and want them to go off and have success. A lot of our students come from family units that are threatened by their opportunities because they weren't opportunities that they had. And so what we have to do is we have to convince people that it's okay to pursue your dreams, at the same time loving or at least being engaged with the people who you call family. And that's a hard conversation. We have that conversation at College Career Center every day, not with every student, but often, because that fear of you're going to go off and become somebody and leave me behind is a really, really strong pull. I had a student who's very bright the other day say to me, I would like to get a job within 3 hours of where I grew up because my family's really important to me, and if something happened, I wanted to be able to get home. If they were sick, I'd want to be there. I understand that pull, but if your dream job isn't 3 hours from home, does that mean you don't go for the job? Because you want to be close to family. So finding a way to gently have those conversations to encourage people to pursue their dreams and decide, do you want to be within 3 hours by car or by plane? And then if it's by plane, then you've just opened up a whole bunch of other opportunities. But family can really be both a blessing and sometimes a difficult hurdle.
When it comes to diverse populations, we have so many in our school, and so the ones that I tend to work with a lot may be those who come from disadvantaged backgrounds financially. For example, those who are first-generation college students. A lot of the challenges I see is that they don't know who to turn to. And even though there is a school full of professionals who can guide them, sometimes they're afraid to make the first step. And so we really try to structure our programming in a way where we work with students very individually. And so a lot of times we're trying to communicate with them through an app called Remind, where we can directly get a message to them and invite them to come to maybe it's an ACT boot camp or an open lab day where they can get things taken care of. But then I'll also see things from a totally different perspective. So we have a lot of students who are quite wealthy in our school as well. And it's different working with that population because they have very different types of concerns and different types of pressures. And so from the student perspective, they want to, they're not used to seeing what things are like when there's a challenge in front of them. And so so having to navigate them through different types of plans. You know, what does plan A look like? What does plan B look like? You know, cost is not going to be the issue with some of those students, and so they're having to look at things like, well, is it location that matters to them? Is it the type of extracurricular activities that the college offers, you know, that matters to them? Or let's say that a student from one of these backgrounds decides that they are gung-ho military, but their parent may have a different idea for them. So we have to navigate through some of those challenges and conversations. I think another thing that that parents from any of those backgrounds face is, you know, there's peer pressure for parents, just like there's peer pressure for students. And so they're having to then look and say, okay, well, maybe I thought my student was going to be on this one particular path, but how do I handle it when they're looking at something totally different? How do I talk to my friends about that? How do I encourage my student with that? You know, just as an example, I had a mom who came to me because her son was interested in welding. He's interested in the Sky Fame program, which Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, he's working at an advanced manufacturing facility. Tuesdays and Thursdays, that facility will pay for his school. So he's going to, you know, he's going to school to do that. He's on fire about it. His mom is terrified of it. And so having those conversations where she understands that she's got to feed off of his enthusiasm and encourage him where he is, it's just new territory for a lot of parents.
So the opportunities is they have full access to a university campus. They get college credits. They have amazing internship opportunities. We have one of my colleagues, I think I said earlier, is just dedicated. Her job is finding opportunities for these students, jobs, internships, whatever it may be. So they have amazing opportunities to do amazing things. And some of them are doing research with university professors, and they're going to be published authors by the time they're 18 and they're graduating. And like, how many 18-year-olds can say that they researched cancer? And one of my kids the other day, she told me, she's like, I'm going to cure Alzheimer's one day. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, what 18-year-old have I ever met that's going to cure Alzheimer's one day? And so they have amazing opportunities. But with that, they have an immense amount of challenges. They have family pressure. They have the pressure that they put on themselves, which is incredibly difficult to watch at sometimes, because there's so many of them that are perfectionists, and I mean it lovingly, but they are. They have no idea what it's like to fail. They have no idea what it's like for something to not come so easily to them. And when they come here and they get their first bad grade, it is catastrophic to them. So I have to remind myself that wasn't me when I was 16 and 17, but that's their reality. And with that comes a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety. I see some depression. I see a lot of eating disorders, a good amount of self-harm, suicide ideation. And it all relates back to just that immense amount of pressure to succeed, to perform, to almost be this machine that just cranks out successful things all the time. So they're as brilliant as their minds are, it comes with challenges. And some of them have the capability to think so rapidly and so quickly and so imaginatively that they're able to memorize things very quickly or have a photographic memory or whatever it may be. But that also could relate to why they have night terrors at night, or why they can't sleep, or why they are so anxious, because the way that they function is a challenge all in itself at times for some of them. I think being in the environment that they're in, they aren't the outcasts anymore. They're surrounded by kids that are like-minded, and you know, they're not that kid that's like, oh, well, she's the smart kid, or oh, he's the smart kid, and it's just them. They're surrounded by people that are exactly like them, and it's not just about intelligence. It's about they have similar interests. They think the same way about things. They experience things in the same way, and a lot of them have never had that before. So being in this environment in itself, while it is challenging, it's also very rewarding for them, because they have a built-in safety net with each other, whether they realize it or not, because all of them are in the same boat. They're all going through this together. They all have to take the majority of the same classes, at least the base of their coursework, so they can, you know, go to somebody else in their class and be like, gosh, like, I don't understand this. Can you help me? Or you had this class last year. Like, what did you think? And so they have that support system. And also with that, as a staff, like, we try so hard to surround them with this like blanket of safety, like safety blanket. And like, we all go on a first name basis with the kids, and we give them respect and expect it in return from them. And with that, it's sometimes like the kids think that we're suffocating them, because it's like this person's reaching out and this person has this area and this person's trying to help. And I mean, so Gatton was initially created for 120 students, so 60 juniors and 60 seniors. And 2 years ago, they completed an expansion to hold 200 students. So with that expansion, my direct boss, my supervisor, he advocated for an additional therapist to take on those additional 80 students that they would be adding. So that is how I came into my position. And with that, like, I mean, we both see like 30 to 40 kids a week. So we're seeing like almost half the population of kids. So a lot of times, some of them realize that they need help to face an issue or an adversity, or just to get through something. So they come to us, which is wonderful. Some students we kind of have to drag down to our office, and if they don't want to meet with me or my boss, then somebody else on our staff can form that relationship with them and provide support to them in a different way, so that they're not, you know, feeling lost or stuck, and that they have to get through what they need to get through alone, because that's not what it's about, and we try really hard to make sure that they know that.
For diverse populations, I think a lot of the challenges is just what it is: racism, sexism, those things still exist. Not being really, in some cases, students tell me, taken seriously, being maybe shortchanged sometimes. And even though those things are external, they can also be internal, because we are where we come from, and oftentimes they shut themselves off, and they don't give others a chance because of some of the things, some of the bumps that they've had. And so I think that's a challenge as it pertains to college and career. Just not always putting yourself in the best position, because you already have this self determination in your mind that somebody's not going to accept you, or they're not going to interview you, and that might be the case, but you still need to put you know, if you don't apply, if you don't go to school, then you know that's going to be true. But also, I think I tell students of color and diverse populations in whom I serve that it is great to be exposed to differences, and it is great to be able to share your story. And you cannot educate by isolating. we tend to do that. We want everybody to understand, and we want to educate everyone, but we tend to isolate. And you can't educate by isolating. And so I encourage students and diverse populations in whom I serve that's great. If someone trusts you enough to ask you about yourself, then trust yourself enough to answer. And so you have to do some internal searching, but you also have to be willing to share your story. And so I think that's key as well. And once a student claims that, or an adult claims that, and they're able to sit at any table and tell their story and not isolate and sit at a different table, I think that's when I feel like I've done my job.